Evening, everyone, and welcome to The Next Revolution. I was at a local event this week, and we started by saying the Pledge of Allegiance. And it made me think of two things. First, how incredibly special America is. Nothing like that ever happens in England, where I grew up, or Hungary, where my family is from. As a new citizen of this country, I have to tell you, it is an amazing thing that we have such a strong sense of what America stands for. But here's the second point that came to mind as we all stood for the pledge. What America stands for is under threat, and it's really serious. We see it in this preposterous prosecution of Donald Trump in New York. What does it say in the pledge? Liberty and justice for all. Yeah, even ex-presidents you may hate. Or, as it says on the front of the Supreme Court, equal justice under law. Yes, even for presidential candidates you may be desperate to stop. Of course, no one is above the law, but no one is below it either. Now, all week, you've been hearing the details about why this case is, trumped up and ludicrous. We don't need to spend time on that tonight. Only the most demented and cultish, Trump-hating hyper-partisan would take any of this seriously. Unfortunately, most of the media seem to be demented and cultish, Trump-hating partisans these days. So, there you go. The important point is this. The primacy of the rule of law in American life is one of the things that America has most been admired for. It's one of the things I most admired America for, from afar. And now, Democrats are just going to throw that away, make us look like some tin pot dictatorship, where politicians in power commandeer the courts to take down their political rivals. It is a devastating blow to America's reputation around the world, never mind confidence in our judicial system here at home. I mean, how bad does it have to be for this guy to be right about it?
I think it's all politics, and I think that's what the people of this country are saying. And it just feeds that anger and that cynicism and the partisanship. It's a coincidence that Bragg goes after Trump and Tish James goes after Trump and Georgia goes after Trump. That's all a coincidence. And I think it feeds the cynicism, and that's the cancer in our body politic right now.
But the Trump case in New York is just the most high-profile way some of the deepest things America stands for are being assaulted. My parents, my whole family, grew up under communism in Hungary. It was a place where if you said the wrong thing, criticized the wrong people, you could lose your job. Your children could be shut out of the best opportunities. There was no such thing as free speech. Free speech was why America was founded in the first place. But honestly, it's gone. You know that. You know you can't say what you think about certain things anymore. Political things mostly. But during the pandemic, it was extended to anything to do with that. We told you the other week about the student at Princeton who was kicked out of her leadership position on a sports team because of something she said about policing in a private conversation. A private conversation. What is this? The Stasi in East Germany, where you never know who may be an informant? And by the way, that is not an idle comparison. Someone I know well, who's in a senior position at one of the biggest tech companies, says that's what it's like there, like East Germany under the Stasi. How did this happen in America? It seems to have happened so quickly. We cannot stand for it. We must stand up for the things America stands for, including what we stand for around the world. And that brings us to the 2024 presidential election, specifically the Republican primary, and what we have recently learned about the character and competence of the man who sees himself, who the media has built up as, the only alternative to Trump. Ron DeSantis. He told us what he thinks about Ukraine and Russia, America's role in the world. But he didn't just tell us once, he told us twice. Even better, he told us completely different things each time. What, so we can choose which position we prefer? We're electing a president, not an opinion poll. From the very beginning, I argued that Putin's aggression must be confronted and defeated. Of course it's true that Biden, the Democrats, and the media's incessant virtue signaling over Ukraine, their smugness and their sanctimoniousness, it's all incredibly off-putting. Of course it's true that Biden's years of appeasing Putin over Crimea, Nord Stream, energy policy, telling Putin he'd be fine with a minor incursion. Biden's humiliating surrender to the Taliban and catastrophic withdrawal from Afghanistan. All that gave Putin the green light to launch his brutal invasion. Of course, it's true when people say Biden and the Democrats are all fired up about Ukraine's borders but couldn't give a damn about ours. But the reason they don't give a damn about our borders is not that they're distracted by Ukraine. It's that they don't give a damn about our borders. Biden opened our borders a year before Putin invaded Ukraine. This chaos isn't incompetence. It's deliberate. It's the Democrats' ideological extremism in action. The idea that we can't both secure our border and stand up to Putin's assault on Ukraine's border is ridiculous. We just need a president that directs the federal government to be strong at home and abroad. Here's another argument you hear. Why should we pay? It's Europe's war, Europe's security. People see headlines about our ammo running out because we're sending it all to Ukraine, and they say, what is this about? Just our commitment to Ukraine so far is $113 billion. The next country is the UK. They've sent $8.8 billion. What a joke. A serious American president would say to the UK's Sunak, to Macron in France, to the German guy, you don't get to go and do your thirsty photo op with Zelensky unless you cough up the cash. Why should American taxpayers fund your preening and virtue signaling? But here's the bottom line. The direct threat to America is China. If Xi invades Taiwan, as we know he wants to, the impact on our economy and well-being will make the Ukraine war look like a picnic. China's ports closed, Singapore's probably shut down, massive disruption to the world economy, never mind the cost to all of us of a direct confrontation with a regime that is infinitely more rich, powerful, and sophisticated than Putin's Russia. It would be a nightmare. And if we withdraw our support for Ukraine, it would become much more likely. Standing up to Putin is standing up to China. That is our interest. And yes, it is a vital national interest. That doesn't mean we shouldn't challenge all these leaders, Biden, the Europeans, when they trot out their answer to the question, what's the end game?
We are going to support Ukraine as long as it takes.
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 We will stand with Ukraine for as long as it takes.
For as long as it takes.
As long as it takes. That's not a plan. That's a slogan. We need a strategy to end the war. But our leaders talk as if they're perfectly fine with it going on forever, fueled by American money and Ukrainian lives. But honestly, blaming Biden, demanding accountability, wanting the Europeans to do more, that's the easy part. And many of the Republican presidential candidates made those points in response to a questionnaire from our friend and colleague Tucker Carlson. The hard question is, what would you do? Not a lot, according to this guy, Ron DeSantis, or as he perhaps should now be known, Ron DeCarkis. Because just like the hapless Democrat presidential nominee in 1988, DeSantis managed to look weak and incompetent all in one go. I've got nothing against the Florida governor, far from it. I was a huge admirer of his strong stand on COVID. He stood up to the groupthink, the media, he followed the science, he protected his state, and he deserves credit for that. But his first foray into foreign policy, let's just say, it seemed more provincial than presidential. A leading candidate making a massively consequential policy announcement in response to a questionnaire from a TV show, that is amateur hour. Calling the invasion of a sovereign country a territorial dispute, giving moral equivalence to the criminal and the victim. And then, instead of cleaning it up, making it worse. He tells our friend Piers Morgan he was mischaracterized. How can you have been mischaracterized when it was your own words that you freely sent in responding to a questionnaire? Piers and Tucker have completely different views on Ukraine, but Ron DeCarkis was trying to agree with them both. It is weakness and incompetence and flip-flopping and pandering, all squished into one deeply unserious episode. And that is deeply worrying when the threats to what America stands for are so serious. Threats to the very idea of liberty and justice for all, threats to the freedom of speech that should be every American's birthright, and threats to the global leadership that our prosperity, our way of life, all our opportunities are built on. Tell us what you think on the new free Twitter at NextRevFNC and at Steve Hilton X, and share this message when we post it.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.